For centuries, the story of global wealth was written in the language of the physical world. It was a story defined by the movement of raw materials, the construction of energy grids, and the expansion of fiat debt. The empires of the past were built on the control of land, the mastery of supply chains, and the monopoly of industrial capacity. Whether it was the oil fields of the 19th century or the global manufacturing hubs of the 20th, the source of wealth was always external. It was always tethered to the concrete soil of the terrestrial world. But as we sit in the mid-2020s, that old model of prosperity has hit a structural wall. Global capital accumulation has reached a state of diminishing returns. The traditional financial instruments, equities, bonds, real estate, have become saturated. The growth curves that once fueled the expansion of the world's primary architects, those managing the multi-trillion-dollar pools at institutions like BlackRock and Vanguard, are flattening. They have realized that the Earth, with its escalating geopolitical volatility, its climate instability, and its finite resources, is becoming an inefficient, increasingly difficult sandbox to manage. To maintain the rate of capital appreciation demanded by their massive portfolios, these architects have been forced to look for a new frontier. They have shifted their gaze from the concrete world to the biological code. This is the central thesis of the new financial order. Wall Street is no longer just betting on interest rates, inflation indices, or market volatility. They are betting on the degradation of human biology itself. We are currently witnessing the birth of a new asset class, biological derivatives. This is not science fiction, it is the inevitable conclusion of a financial system that has exhausted its ability to extract value from the planet and has turned its gaze inward toward the ultimate, untapped asset, the human life expectancy. Consider the shift in data value. For the past 20 years, the internet economy was built on clickstream data. Every search, every purchase, every interaction was cataloged to predict consumer behavior. But this data has become commoditized. It is cheap, abundant, and increasingly regulated by privacy laws. The new frontier is biometric stream data. Your heart rate, your sleep cycles, your oxygen levels, your stress markers, and your genetic predispositions, these are the new raw materials of global capital. By harvesting this data, financial institutions can do what they could never do before, they can predict the precise moment of your biological decline. The engine of this transformation is the Aladdin infrastructure. Most people know Aladdin as a risk management tool for portfolio managers, but its role has evolved. It is the operating system of global finance. It does not just manage stock portfolios, it dictates systemic risk across the entire global order. In its early iterations, Aladdin managed the risk of sovereign debt defaults or corporate collapses. Today, it is being trained to manage the risk of human mortality. By integrating real-time streaming data from wearable devices, Amazon Clinic, and medical records, the architects of this system are constructing a comprehensive life cycle cost model for every individual on the planet. This model is the bedrock of the biological derivative market. When your health data is fed into these massive algorithmic black boxes, the goal is not to improve your health, but to calculate your economic value over the duration of your life. If the algorithm predicts a shift in your biometric markers, if it detects a trend toward chronic illness, it calculates the cost of that illness to the system. It then prices that risk. When they short your health, they are not necessarily trying to make you sick. They are simply hedging against the reality of your biological decline. The profit motive of the global elite is now directly tied to the accurate pricing of your eventual collapse. The faster your biological data drifts toward high risk, the more capital they generate by managing the fallout of your eventual expiration. You are no longer an individual navigating your own path, you are a data-generating node in a risk management ledger, and your life expectancy is being traded like a high-frequency derivative. This transition marks a fundamental fracture in the social contract. For all of human history, mortality was the only flawless equalizer. Death settled the ledger at the exact same finish line for everyone. No matter how much capital was consolidated by the elite, they could never buy an escape from time. But that is no longer true. We are now entering an age where wealth is no longer an external asset stored in bank vaults, it is translating directly into physiological lifespan and cognitive endurance. The financialization of the human body has turned your very pulse into an instrument of capital appreciation, and the system is designed to reward those who can most accurately predict the moment you stop being profitable. Welcome to the end of the data age. This is the new financial frontier, where your biology is the collateral, and the algorithm is the sovereign. We are just getting started. To fully comprehend how your life is being turned into a liquid financial instrument, we must move beyond the marketing veneer of wellness and analyze the cold mechanics of synthetic actuarialism. Historically, the insurance and actuarial industries operated on the principle of the large number. They relied on static, population-level tables. They looked at age, biological sex, smoking status, and broad socio-economic markers to determine risk. It was a blunt, probabilistic instrument. But that era has ended. We have entered the age of dynamic, individual-level telemetry, where the insurance firm no longer needs to estimate your risk, they can measure it in real time. This is what we call synthetic actuarialism. It is the fusion of high-frequency trading algorithms and biometric data harvesting. By integrating data from wearable devices, smart home sensors, and digital health applications, these firms are now generating a life cycle cost model for every policyholder. This model does not treat you as a demographic category, it treats you as a continuous data stream. They are monitoring your heart rate variability, your resting metabolic rate, your glucose levels, and your sleep architecture. Every single one of these data points is fed into an automated underwriting engine that calculates your value to the insurer in milliseconds. The power asymmetry here is absolute. When you sign up for a voluntary health reward program, you are not just getting a discount on your premium, you are granting the insurer the right to build a high-fidelity digital twin of your physiology. In 2025, whistleblowers from within the major health tech corridors revealed that these internal AI models were designed to identify what they termed the economic liquidation point of an individual. This is the exact moment when the cost of maintaining your coverage outweighs the lifetime premium revenue they expect to extract from you. If your biometric trends deviate from their optimized baseline, the system automatically triggers a re-rating process. You are being repriced, effectively, while you sleep. Consider the application of Black-Scholes pricing models to human biology. In the world of derivatives, the Black-Scholes formula is used to determine the fair value of an option based on its volatility, the price of the underlying asset, and the time remaining until expiration. In the new world of biological derivatives, the underlying asset is you. Your physiology is the volatility factor. When your heart rate variability shows a sustained downward trend over a 6-month period, the algorithm interprets this as an increase in systemic volatility. Because you are the underlying asset, your premium price, the cost of your risk, must inevitably rise. They are hedging their bets against your inevitable biological decline, and they are doing so with the same quantitative precision they use to trade energy futures or currency pairs. This creates a predatory feedback loop. These systems are designed to detect early-onset chronic conditions, but they do not use this information to prioritize your care. They use it to optimize their balance sheets. If the predictive model flags you as a high-probability candidate for metabolic syndrome within the next 5 years, the insurer has already priced that failure into your current contract. They have essentially shorted your health. They profit from the assumption that you will decline, and they adjust your economic burden accordingly. You are trapped in a system where the entity that is supposed to protect you from financial disaster is now the entity that benefits most from your biological vulnerability. The data asymmetry is the final nail in the coffin. You do not see the model. You do not see the coefficients that determine your risk profile. You are presented with a simplified, gamified interface, a score out of 100, perhaps, or a badge that rewards you for meeting a step count goal. But behind that interface lies a sophisticated, non-transparent scoring engine that is determining your lifetime insurability and your long-term access to capital. You are playing a game where the house not only holds all the cards but has programmed the deck to ensure that the house always wins. They know the trajectory of your health better than you do, and they are using that knowledge to ensure that you are always paying a premium for the privilege of being monitored. This is the baseline reality of the biological derivative market. It is a system designed for total visibility into your physiology, while keeping the financial consequences of that visibility entirely in the shadows. As we transition deeper into this framework, the question is no longer about whether your data is being used, but about who owns the biological future that this data is currently building. To engage with the architects of this system, the leadership at firms like Alphabet's Verily or the investment arms of the elite, is to step into a reality defined by the pro-efficiency defense. When confronted with the reality of biometric surveillance and synthetic actuarialism, these architects do not frame their work as an intrusion, they frame it as a moral imperative. Their argument is rooted in the belief that human biology is, fundamentally, a data problem waiting to be solved. They argue that by quantifying health, we can transition the global economy from a model of reactionary sickness management to one of proactive, personalized prevention. The core of their argument is seductive. They claim that if a proprietary algorithm, trained on the massive, aggregate datasets of millions of users, can identify the early warning signs of a cardiac event or a neurodegenerative decline 2 years before clinical symptoms manifest, the system achieves a state of near-perfect utility. From their perspective, this is a net positive for society. The insurer saves on the exorbitant costs of emergency interventions, the healthcare system experiences less strain, and the individual potentially gains years of productive, healthy life. They argue that the biological risk score is not a tool of exclusion, but a diagnostic miracle that provides the individual with a hyper-personalized roadmap for longevity. The benefits they cite are significant. They promise an era of precision medicine where treatments are tailored to your specific epigenetic profile, not to population averages. They promise a world where the inefficiency of the current insurance model, which punishes everyone for the unpredictable illnesses of a few, is replaced by a system where you are held responsible for your own biological choices. In this view, they are not punishing the unhealthy, they are incentivizing the responsible. They frame this as a democratic redistribution of health capital, where your choices directly dictate your financial security, stripping away the subsidies that currently shield poor health behaviors from market consequences. However, the cons of this defense reveal the darker reality that the architects purposefully overlook. Beneath the veneer of personalized wellness lies the total erosion of medical privacy and the commodification of human suffering. When you grant an algorithm the right to monitor your biology, you are not just sharing data, you are ceding control over your future. The rise of a digital underclass is not a hypothetical risk, it is a structural necessity of this model. If you cannot afford the lifestyle interventions required to keep your biological risk score within the optimal range, you become an economic liability. The system does not attempt to rehabilitate the high-risk individual, it prices them out of existence. The ethical fracture here is profound. The industry views you as a data node that needs to be optimized for the sake of the ledger. We view you as a sovereign human being whose right to exist is not contingent upon your performance metrics. The industry claims that this is an evolution of medicine, but it is actually a reversion to a form of biological predestination. They argue that the data makes the system more solvent, but the price of that solvency is the surrender of human agency. By reducing your life to an asset class, they have eliminated the possibility of grace, resilience, or simple humanity. The gap between their pro-efficiency defense and our reality is not technological, it is fundamentally moral. They believe that if something can be measured and optimized, it should be. We argue that by measuring everything, they are sacrificing the very things that make life worth living, our privacy, our unpredictability, and our inherent right to be more than just a sum of our biometric parts. The engine powering this transition to biological extraction is the Aladdin ecosystem. Aladdin, the world's most powerful risk management and investment management platform, manages over $20 trillion in global assets. It does not merely manage static stock portfolios, it functions as the central nervous system of global finance, dictating systemic risk across the entire planetary order. In the context of the biological derivative market, Aladdin serves as the primary enforcement mechanism that bridges the gap between individual biometric data and global capital flows. Here is where the biological risk score enters the financial feedback loop. We are currently witnessing a convergence between ESG, environmental, social, and governance, scores and granular biometric tracking. Institutional capital is now programmatically structured to de-risk, and the primary variable in this new equation is the biological stability of the human capital underlying any given corporation. If a major corporation has a workforce with poor biological risk scores, derived from the massive troves of data generated by their employer-sponsored health programs, that corporation's internal ESG rating inevitably takes a hit. This creates a terrifying, self-reinforcing incentive structure. Corporations are now structurally compelled to police their employees' health data with a level of rigor that would have been unimaginable a decade ago. They are not doing this for the sake of employee wellness, they are doing it to keep their cost of capital low and their institutional investments secure. Your health data is no longer yours, it is a critical component of your employer's financial health, and by extension, a data-generating node in a global risk management ledger. If you fall outside the algorithmic bell curve of optimal performance, you transform from an asset into a systemic liability. The algorithm, operating within the Aladdin framework, will automatically deprioritize the financial interests of that entity. This is the biometric prison in practice. If your metrics fail, your employer's risk profile rises, your job security erodes, and your access to future economic opportunities is restricted. The individual is no longer a sovereign human being, they are an optimized unit of production whose biological output must remain within predefined, algorithmic boundaries. This feedback loop ensures that the pressure to conform is absolute. It is a form of soft, biological coercion. Because the cost of non-compliance, expressed through higher interest rates, reduced capital access, and systemic exclusion, is so high, both the corporation and the employee are forced into a pact of total transparency. You are effectively being priced into the system, and the system is designed to purge anything that introduces unpredictable volatility into its ledger. By turning human health into a governance metric, the architects of this system have effectively made it impossible to exist outside the data harvesting apparatus without facing catastrophic financial consequences. We are witnessing the birth of a world where your biological output is the primary determinant of your right to participate in the economy. Every market bubble in history, from the 1637 tulip mania to the 2008 subprime collapse, was built on the same core fallacy, the illusion of perpetual, linear growth and the belief that risk can be perfectly contained within a mathematical model. The biological derivative bubble is the final, most dangerous iteration of this madness. It assumes that human life can be reduced to static code and that the chaotic variables of existence can be perfectly hedged. But this is a catastrophic error. Human biology is nonlinear, resilient, and fundamentally unpredictable. These predictive models are entirely blind to the black swan events that are inherent in human evolution and resilience. The architects of this system believe they have achieved a state of total oversight. They think they have solved for the volatility of being human. But when these complex mortality derivatives inevitably clash with the unpredictable reality of biological and social evolution, the systemic fallout will be profound. The system is brittle. It is a hyperconnected, surveillance-heavy web that is only one genuine, massive disruption away from total liquidation. The elite know this. They are the ones who built the algorithms, and they are the ones who know exactly how fragile their construction truly is. This is why we are already seeing the emergence of the billionaire exit strategy. This is not a conspiracy theory, it is observable macroeconomic behavior. Look at the rapid rise of private seed zones, zones for economic development and employment, in places like Honduras. These are sovereign, private corporate cities that operate with their own courts, their own regulatory frameworks, and their own private security, entirely insulated from the social contracts of the nations that surround them. Add to this the massive, multi-billion-dollar investments into off-world infrastructure and deep bunker sanctuaries. The elite know the matrix they built is not designed to support human life, it is designed to extract, liquidate, and flee the moment the ledger starts to burn. They are buying their exit while the baseline population is tethered to a system that is rapidly becoming a closed-loop prison. They intend to move off-world or into ultra-secure enclaves, completely detached from the social consequences of the systemic collapse they are currently engineering. They are betting on a future where they have successfully decoupled their survival from the fate of the masses. So, where does this leave you? The final message is clear: your life is being turned into a short position by the very systems you rely on for convenience. The only way to win this game is to refuse to play. You must decouple your biological identity from their digital ledgers. The sovereign audit begins with a radical choice: you must become an unreadable variable. This means auditing the data trails you leave behind, severing the telemetry of your devices, and reclaiming your existence from the predictive models that have already written your digital obituary. The true architect of your life must be you, not an algorithm calculating your exit date in a sterile office in Lower Manhattan. The matrix is beginning to show its cracks, and the survivors of the coming transition will be those who refuse to be measured, refuse to be priced, and refuse to be shorted. You are more than a line item in a risk management ledger. You are a sovereign entity. If you want to continue the audit, if you want to understand how to build your own private, unreadable sanctuary in the midst of this data-driven collapse, we will continue to decode the invisible system. Subscribe to Wealth Wisdom Man. The truth is the only currency they cannot devalue, and the audit of the elite is only just beginning.